Recently, I had the pleasure of attending various filmmaker events and met a lot of wonderful filmmakers that have done many, many short films and now are ready to start their first feature film. And whenever I talk to them, they're always talking about it in terms of the scope of it, right? Meaning all the things that they've ever been taught, single location, small cast, things of that nature, and really trying to break through and just get a movie done. And while obviously that is a path forward and, that seems to be the traditional wisdom of, what so many books and people share as far as what you should do. And the thinking is by keeping those elements contained, then your budget will be contained as well, right? And especially if you're an indie filmmaker, you need to contain the budget because you don't have a lot to work with. And I get all that. But it has always been A, my belief, and then B, through my actions, I've been able to show it with my thus far 2 feature films that you can actually throw out that stuff and still make an indie movie for not a lot of money, but one that has many, many locations, one that has many, many actors, tons of shots and coverage and stuff like that. You lose out on certain things for sure. Like, let's say my movies tend to not have the best lighting in comparison to like very stylized films and things like that. That's okay though. I've made certain choices about that for myself. So let me kind of give you, an overall view of how I approached my 2 movies thus far. Number 1, I reached out to, the various actor friends that I had and to see who would be interested being a part of it, right? And that way I dictated the script based around who was available to me from an acting perspective. Then once I knew the players, then I could pick locations. And the way I did this was I chose a lot of public spaces, right? And, one of the things that people do talk about in indie filmmaking that I'm a firm believer in is the idea of borrowing shots, right? Or borrowing locations, meaning if you're in a public space, then, you're allowed to film there. Now, the thing of it is you have to keep a small footprint. So, no boom poles, no tons of lights, not a big crew, stuff like that. But more and more as the years go by, people are used to just vloggers and influencers just out in the street, and a lot of them actually have some pretty hefty cameras and stuff like that. For me, I always like to use just 2 Blackmagic cameras. They're relatively small and it keeps it simple. Now, I also say 2 because it allows me to shoot much faster, right? And so, let's say I want 8 different shots for a particular scene. Well, that only takes 4 setups because I have the 2 cameras, right? And, as with let's say Robert Rodriguez and stuff like that, I shoot it myself and get another person to run second camera who I trust, and we collaborate on the cinematography, both in the pre-production phase and then the production phase. We've got it kind of down pat, and so we're able to go really, really quickly. And that's the other thing too, is, in terms of being out in various locations, there's some of them that listen, you might have to shoot it within 20 minutes, but you can do that. Know exactly the types of shots you need, and get them and go do that. And then the ones where you have a much more control over the environment, then you can take your time a little bit more and experiment a little bit more and so forth, right? And part of how I do this is I make sure to rehearse with the actors so that way everyone knows kind of what we're getting into. I explain to them the situations and stuff like that so no one's, shocked at how quickly we're going to go and things of that nature. And like I said, there's certain things that because of it, you give up, right? So as I said, my lighting, for me, I run lavs and it can be obviously more difficult to control the audio when you're in a live environment in a public space. But, I found that like, hey, it adds a certain flavor and things like that. So the things that seem like mistakes, you can sort of lean into and make it part of the whole movie, right? And I found generally, like, through my work, you don't really need to ADR the dialogue on location. It ends up being pretty good. Like lavs nowadays, and if you place them right, they can do quite a bit. And so there's all these various techniques and stuff like that you can utilize, but overall, there's a way to not have a balloon, right? And, whenever you have tons of actors, the thing of it is, like, you're paying them for their time and stuff like that. And if you can keep things quickly, so, with my first movie, we shot in 12 days. And by the way, some days that we shot was like just an hour here or hour there. And so, if you can really work with people's schedules, filming on weekends and things of that nature when they are available, it's a little bit more stressful because you have to make sure everybody's time overlaps to be able to make that happen. But there are ways to do this. And, also working with like up and coming actors, let's say local theater people, students in colleges and things like that. Like there's a way to figure this all out where it's not a lot of money to be able to do. And also go into different places, right? One of the reasons why my second film takes place in Bogota, Colombia is because I could really stretch my dollar. I mean, and the beautiful part was we had about like 12 people. We were having drinks and also like steak dinners and stuff like that at this one meal. And for all those people, it ended up being about $200, right? So, like expand where you film and stuff like that. And it wasn't that, all things considered, it was far easier to fly out everybody, put them up, feed them and all that. And for, the 2 weeks of my second movie, because that's how long that one took, we were all there. It was like a fun summer camp experience. We all just made this movie. And so, yeah, there's ways to do it. So what I'm encouraging you through this whole episode is to just get a little more creative and don't just buy into the common wisdom. Not that it's wrong necessarily, but there's definitely other ways to go about this. And, if you have in your heart to do a different type of movie, go do it. You don't have to be so restricted. Now, that said, obviously, when you're first starting off, you're not going to make your dream, ultra budget movie, right? Like there's plenty of movies that I have that are high in concept, that are elevated and, have action scenes and this and that. So as I said, there is a concession, but you don't have to concede as much as you think ultimately. And the idea being that, ultimately you want to build to your dream project anyway, because along the way, you'll acquire the skills that you'll be able to then not only make that dream movie, but make it in the way that it deserves to be made because you've got the wisdom and skills behind it. So that's the beautiful thing. So I hope this ultimately encourages you, expands your viewpoint, and allows you to go and make the movie that you've been wanting to make, the first movie. So yeah, let me know, as a thought exercise, like really think about all the things that you can utilize to expand the scope of your movie, right? And comment down below so we can all kind of have this overall list. I've given you a very finite number of ways to expand that scope, but let's make it a little bit more comprehensive. Thank you as always. I truly do appreciate you. Hope to see you next time.